The new, paid expansion for The Division 2 has finally arrived. Travel through a magical portal back to New York City. Not that any of us wanted to leave there in the first place. Help to bring together the local hipster community. Although I'm pretty sure I want most of them to die. Pay 26 quid for the expansion that nobody asked for. Although we did ask for other stuff that we haven't got yet. Enjoy the full glory of the achievement and gathering mechanics, which I'm pretty sure were nicked from World of Warcraft. Delight in the new level cap increase and a new zone, destroyed by natural disaster. Yeah, well, that shit right there is definitely lifted straight from World of Warcraft. Grind your heart out in the multi-tier season pass system where you can pay to get extra stuff. Oh no, they stole that graphic from Destiny 2. Explore New York City after it's been ravaged by a hurricane. I'm pretty sure the developers just said that so they could skip out on designing most of the map. Buy the base game for just £2.50. It's as cheap as chips. No, I mean that's literally cheaper than the largest portion of chips in my local chippy. Welcome to Warlords of Draenor. Oh, sorry, wrong trailer. Welcome to Warlords of New York, where the Blizzard developers have taken over the asylum. Before we get stuck in, as many of you know, the internet has not been kind to my channel. YouTube fucks me in the arse relentlessly just because I swear very occasionally, and because I refuse to run adverts every 5 fucking minutes in my videos, which, let's face it, would just piss everybody off. They auto-unsubscribe people, fail to notify people, and rarely push my videos in the suggestions. Ubisoft deletes any reference to me on site. Randy Pitchford has stopped returning my calls. And Todd Howard hasn't given me a fucking suck job in weeks. Not that they were up to much anyway. My point is, if you like my content and want to support my channel, there are some things you can do which don't involve sacrificing a goat, spending money on Patreon, sending me free porno, or paying for me to get a Jessica fucking Orbiter 2 on my arse. Or face. Subscribe, click the bell, and turn the bell end notification to annoy setting. And perhaps even more importantly, suggest my channel to a friend. I can't guarantee that you are going to agree with what I say in my videos, and I certainly can't guarantee I'm going to be particularly nice about how I say it. But if you value independent content and honest opinions, then telling a few people about my channel is probably the most helpful thing anyone could do for me. Just don't do it anywhere near Ubisoft Massive, or they will ban you. Not even kidding. But more of this later. Right now, we need to focus on what the actual fuck is going on with this new paid DLC. Well, Ubisoft is at it again, like a shoplifter who always wears a business suit when they're out thieving. People just assume they're legit, and they couldn't possibly be nicking stuff, right? I will be upfront about one thing right from the start. Given my years of experience with this franchise, through both the good, the bad, and the tragically anti-consumer practices, if I didn't actually cover this fucking game, I would not have bought this DLC on principle. I mean it. It's throwing good money after bad, and I paid full price for this bad game once already. Some of the game changes are welcome. Some of the character progression changes look fairly good, but everything in this fucking DLC should have been free. So if anyone is so appalled with the entire concept of paying for extra content before Ubisoft Massive has even finished unfucking this mess of a game, then frankly, you are the sensible ones. So what degree of deceit, conceit and dishonesty has Ubisoft been up to this time around? Well, what do you know? All the time that Year 1 content, the second raid, bug fixes and loot drops have been consistently not getting fixed because of their poverty, it turns out that despite not having a sufficient budget in either money or fucks given to fix something as simple as getting the loot tables to drop max level gear for the best part of 2019, lo and fucking behold, Ubisoft has managed, once again, to acquire a budget to covertly make some underwhelming, profiteering DLC shite that they can bill us for. I guess that's surprise mechanics for you, right there. Do practically nothing to fix the game we paid for, then suddenly whip out some DLC from behind your back at the start of Year 2 and say, here are some fixes, but it's gonna cost you. Remember how they never seemed to have the budget to fix a damn thing for most of the lifespan of the Division 1, and then we found out the Division 2 was under development from launch day of the previous game? Well, shocking surprise. Once again, Ubisoft continues the legacy of pulling the same shitty stunts over and over again, whilst the monkey fuck obedient fanboys clap like little organ monkeys and screech, I'm perfectly happy to pay for decent content. Well, clearly they fucking are, because many of them have paid 2 or 3 times now and still not even received the decent content. They must love paying for it, I guess, more than actually getting it, in fact. You see, the Division 2 has a lot of problems, so let's take a look at which problems are fixed by raising the level cap, sending us off for some shitty missions in New York, and charging us £26. Problems we needed solving. Players want different game modes like survival. Players are bored doing the same old chores for fucking hipsters. Loot drops are a fucking crap fest of vendor spew. You can only have 12 people in the dark zone. PvP is a huge fail in the Division 2. Many players prefer the Division 1. And are going back to it. People are fucked off with the constant gear set trashing. The game is still full of bugs. The game is full of boring repetitive missions. I'm not sure they solved any of those problems. Perhaps one maybe, but time will tell. Oh, and nobody believes the story narrative of New York City has been hit by a hurricane, so lots of areas are damaged and out of reach. Everyone knows that's developer speak for, we are too cheap to design the whole area, so if we claimed it was all a bit fucked up, we could just block off whole chunks of it and not bother to do the design work. People aren't idiots. At the end of the day, players have made their demands very clear and are being ignored in Twitch chat during State of the Game every week and on the forums. Players want substantively different game modes to break up the boredom. They want survival, they want a battle mode like Last Stand, they want a procedurally generated mode like Underground. Fuck, they just want the Division 1 back in large part. This is what the players wanted. In fact, if they had decided not to shitcan the Division 1 in the first place, it would have saved us all about 130 quid by my reckoning. But I digress. Instead of what players wanted, we get some more generic missions and a forced level cap raise so players either pay up or fuck off. No significant problems are solved by raising the cap to 40. But plenty more balancing, bug and gear issues are introduced. It's a huge smoke and mirrors fuck around to bamboozle the player into thinking something constructive is going on, but if you take a step back, it's still a rehash of the same mission type, only now they have scaled up the gear, so you have to start over. Only this time around, you have to pay $30 for the pass to level up, and then more money every so often for the privilege of grinding microtransactions for, quote unquote, free. Anyone see a problem with that sentence? It used to be you could earn everything in game. Then you couldn't. Now you have to pay a subscription to earn everything that's free to grind in game. And then probably still end up having to buy the shit you didn't manage to cap in time. This is all that is shitty about monetization from several games, all wrapped up in one. It's the AAA model. Pay for the game and pay for the DLC to basically get the whole game. It's the World of Warcraft subscription model. It's the Call of Duty Modern Warfare Battle Pass model. It's the repeat payment content of Rainbow Six Siege model. These guys don't just want to have their cake and eat it. They want their cake. They want your cake. They want your sister's cake. And they want to fuck her in front of you whilst they eat the fucking lot. Before I get the bone saw out and hack into the skull of the DLC expansion, let's quickly discuss the general state of decay in The Division 2. Well, it's no secret the game's on fucking sale for $3 or less across the globe. I'm sorry, but when a 12-month-old AAA video game is on sale for less than a packet of fucking chips, it's in trouble. That's not a judgment, that's a statement of business fact. A lot of the veteran community members are either pissed off, feel mugged off, or have fucked off to other games. Mostly, some variation of all three. Not that you will hear many of the veteran players complaining. Ubisoft's Thought Police have almost certainly banned them from Twitch chat, the Discord, and the Ubisoft owned and run subreddit. Some players like myself felt it was our duty to choke out another $30 on this expansion that we assumed would disappoint. And let's just say Ubisoft did not, for once, let us down on this front. The Year 1 content ended up being more missions, and the second raid is going to be in Year 2. When I heard Yannick humble bragging on State of the Game that players won't be charged for it, I found that hysterical. Don't worry kids, we won't be charging you for that stuff you already paid for, that's nearly a year late, because we're the good guys. Well, whoop-de-fucking-do. Thanks for not charging us twice for that shite you haven't actually delivered yet. Wow, we should be really grateful for that. Yeah, cheers, buddy. Welcome to The Division, where players should apparently feel grateful when they get nothing, but only have to pay for getting nothing once, even though you still haven't received it yet, right? We are finally getting the hunter outfits that everyone has been asking for, and just because Ubisoft Massive is genetically programmed to spoil everything it creates, they decided to paywall it behind a referral scheme. Most people are rightly seeing this as the gigantic fuck you to the loyal players that it, frankly, well, is. Many players have commented that this should be free and just for players, for example, who own the Division 1. Or who pre-ordered the Division 2, or just fucking free. You know, like back in the olden days, when gamers bought games and then got the stuff in the game they paid for. When loyalty and commitment to a brand was rewarded. Back before you bought a game and then had to pay money for the best stuff in the game and pay some more to keep playing the game. Some people might claim that my rose-tinted vision of the past might qualify as full-blown socialist idealism. How ridiculously entitled of me to actually expect to get the stuff that I have paid for. Last time I checked, one hunter outfit was paywalled behind a referral scheme, and I watched some YouTuber open nearly 100 pedo caches and not win all the items for the other outfit. So they encourage the use of spending money on legacy caches instead. So yeah, chuck your credit card at the problem, and apparently you're winning. I'm still getting consistent and regular reports that Ubisoft customer service is worse than fucking useless when it comes to customer complaint. A common scenario is this: people buy something, it's not credited to their account, they spend months trying to get customer support to fix it, it either shows up by itself eventually, or they just give up. It appears that largely, customer support primarily exists as a location to receive inquiries and complaints, where the best possible outcome is that someone will bullshit you and claim it's being fixed. Some people get zero response at all. Please, dear God, post your customer service experiences in the comment section, please, or link them to me on Twitter. So yes, I think it's safe to say that The Division 2 is not exactly the land of pixies and fucking glitter right now. Well, Warlords of New York is apparently going to solve all of our problems, right? Well, it's certainly going to help with Ubisoft's cash flow problems. Well, what do we actually get for our money? Apart from being able to continue playing the game properly that many of us dropped a fuck pile of cash on less than a year ago. They raised the level cap to 40, which was certainly not in the list of top 10 player demands. We got some more control points to fucking arsewipe and nursemaid. We got more annoying hipsters to save. We got more repetitive missions. We got some relatively interesting but unproven changes to progression. We got some fucky cosmetic items. And yet another ramping up of monetization strategies in the form of cosmetic pedo caches and a Modern Warfare-esque paid battle pass system. A regular supply of old school bugs. Some new, novel and interesting bugs for us to explore, and more scheduled and unscheduled maintenances than you can shake a shitty stick at. So what is the general condition of Warlords of New York at launch? Well, it's made on a shoestring and not properly tested. Anyone who didn't see that truck coming down the road shouldn't be allowed near roads unescorted. Right from day one, people were complaining about the following bugs. And I'll say now, this is not a comprehensive list. Players could not interact with control point NPCs, could not advance beyond a certain point because bugs, could get stuck in the shitty NPC cupboards, can wander outside the map, the terrain was bugged, people experienced permanent DZ loading loops, constant crashes, crashes to desktop, the game not starting up at all, in-game scripts freezing, a god mode exploit, bullet sponge enemies, no damage bugs. You know, basically all that good old stuff that should be caught during testing. If you tested this stuff properly, which will never happen with Ubisoft Massive. So what were my initial impressions? Well, it wasn't as totally fucking unpleasant to bimble around the new map as I thought it would be. A new map that frankly is largely indistinguishable from most of the old Washington map, with indistinguishable bugs, indistinguishable missions, and indistinguishable terrain layout and game dynamics. Setting aside the issue of the tiresome and now boring gameplay loop, as always, it looked very pretty and was atmospheric. Some of the environmental design was as derivative as all holy fuck. Let's just say that nobody needs to mention the movie I Am Legend yet again. There was also a location that was virtually lifted pixel by pixel from the Boston coastline in Fallout 4. And the derivative nature of the DLC is not confined to aesthetics. Derivative is a term that defines this product. The location of the Division 1, monetization strategies borrowed from other games like Call of Duty, Rainbow Six Siege and World of Warcraft, the season system basically practically lifted straight out of the user interface of Destiny 2. Thank you for that, Ricco. With what appears to be an associated monetization system lifted straight from the Battle Pass in Modern Warfare. Environmental design practically lifted from still photography from movies and screenshots from other games. And I mean at times, it's so obvious it's like someone was thieving bits of the map from games like Fallout 3. Yeah, I said it. In fact, it looks like Ubisoft have rounded up every single experienced and competent developer from right across their company of 16,000 employees, sat all 4 of them down in a room and said, steal all the ideas you used in your old jobs, working on those other games, and stick them in Warlords of New York. It's literally a masterclass in game development plagiarism. I have not found a single fucking original thing in this patch. Yeah, I said patch. If I found out the park benches were assets lifted from Watch Dogs, I would not be surprised. Anyone is free to disagree with me about my evaluation of this DLC, but anyone who claims Warlords of New York is original must have literally started playing video games 3 weeks ago. I'm sure someone will appear on State of the Game scene and claim it's all a homage. But, you know, I could claim that this is a homage, and people would rightly tell me to fuck off as well. There is the usual nonsense where specific sections of wall and cover were built with the wrong item placeholder, so they did not function correctly as cover, an unforgivable oversight in a cover-based shooter, I reckon. And the now endemic tripping hazards that hang up your player are now apparently mandatory. Credit where credit is due, however. Overall, though, it looked pretty. Here are some in-game photos by PatrickJr, and the New York cityscape does indeed look sublime. And that right there is probably the Division 2 and Warlords of New York's greatest achievement. The visual aesthetic. Sure, it's mechanically modelled incorrectly some of the time, and we would prefer if it was covered in snow, but they make the sweaty post-apocalyptical monetisation scape look atmospheric and interesting at least. Apparently, the game now has consequences. I didn't notice that really. Well, if you count getting stuck in a fucking cupboard and being 26 quid poorer as consequences, then yes, this game now has consequences. Generally though, it just felt fairly well tuned most of the time. Then it suddenly had specific encounters where it felt like certain NPCs were overtuned. This said, I think the game should be allowed to bed in before any discussions about difficulty occurs, or it will just get nerfed into a daycare unit before people are fully optimised. Also, it's entirely possible that certain encounters are just bugged or not scaling correctly, just like the loot drops did for the whole of fucking year one. Generally though, soloing it with a spud gun, I generally only died when I did something stupid. But one boss did fuck me up repeatedly. The dog in the settlement was fucking stupid. I don't mind dogs in real life, as long as they don't shit near me, or don't shit at all, or if they're savaging someone I hate. But this fucking dog is fugly looking. Its proportions are all on the wank, and it's more like a fucking Pokemon. It's like someone said, genetically engineer me a puppy, but make it out of the proportions of a church gargoyle. Bring back that dog from the original base of operations, for fuck's sake. It might have been an annoying little fuck, but at least it had dignity. This emotional support gonk is just tragic. If you want something cute to cuddle whilst you play video games, buy a fucking personalised astronaut mini-me version of yourself when you were 4 years old. Yeah, they're a real thing. But please, keep this cuddly shit out of our fucking video games, please. The player power fantasy is essentially the same as usual. You are like that hobo in New York who goes around the dustbins searching for cans he can get a few cents for from the recycling depot. They need to calm down with the herbalism mechanic. It was cute in low doses, but now it's just a boring shag. It's so incessant now that I don't think I've run in a straight line for more than 20 feet since 2018. I'm just zigzagging between rucksacks and fucking trash cans like some OCD cunt that has to touch every doorknob in the house 3 times before he can leave to go to work. I've never done that. Never. Mainly because I'm more of a light switch and lock man myself. But I've never done the doorknob thing. Yet. All the basic busy work content is essentially the same old shite on a different day, with some new cell phones to pick up, containing recordings of people whining about nonsense, whining about the apocalypse, whining about each other, whining about fucking whining. Sorry to the writers. I'm sure they got brought in right at the end of the production cycle and got told to do their thing. And they did their best, I guess, but to put it into perspective, I read some notes in Fallout 3 that were so emotionally impactful that they tear-jerked me. Even some of the stories in the Division 1 were impactful. Everyone remembers the piano scene in the street. Warlords of New York story content fills an awkward silence, I guess, but it certainly didn't emotionally engage me. And besides, it's the end of the world. Civilization has collapsed. It is basically unbelievable that I've never picked up a phone in this game and it's been a message about some stash of vintage porno someone found in an apartment, a discussion about who shagged who the previous night, or someone chatting about growing weed or brewing hooch. Let's be honest, the apocalypse is going to be pretty boring, right? It's mostly going to be sitting around without the internet. Strange how every time I pick up a phone everyone is all super serious and businesslike. I don't know, it just doesn't feel authentic and gritty to me. It's all a bit staged. Some of the missions were good, primarily as a result of the environmental design. The one in the oil tanker was beautiful. Yes, I find oil tankers beautiful. It was interesting and had lots of verticality. I mean, I could still pretty much just pop my skills and hide behind a railing and watch all the out-of-reach enemies get shot in the head, but at least it was atmospheric repetitive nonsense. It was, let's face it, heavily inspired by Fallout, but still, it was a nice change of pace and felt like a real ship. From Fallout 3. Some of the missions, however, were just shite. They were just like placeholder locations with cookie-cutter boss encounters with stale mechanics. Worse was the sections where you had to go up or down stairs and engage by going through a doorway, which was, as usual, incorrectly marked as not being cover. You either had to YOLO into the middle of the room and die, or just pop your skills and backtrack, DPSing down any NPCs that had the fucking AI brain cells to walk up or down the stairways after you. And that was an issue too. Some of the AI looked pretty smart. Some of the AI made zombies look very smart. The game is still a circus of bugs. Old bugs, nuanced iterations of existing bugs. In fact, if you were trying to start a taxonomic study of video game bugs, this would be a good place to start. I would begin a mission, get attacked by drones. When it was over, Isaac, the paranoid spam droid, would then groan out a talking clock warning to me about the impending drone attack. I think they must have outsourced Isaac to some overseas call centre operation. Actually, that's not fair. I dealt with an Indian call centre the other day and they were vastly more efficient and effective than Isaac. They responded quicker too. So no, they still haven't fixed the audio mismatch bug from 2017. Some of the loot room puzzles are nice, but this is a double-edged sword. In my review of the base game, I complimented the designers for some of their interesting and difficult loot room puzzles that required a bit of hard work and problem solving. Well, some of the Warlords puzzles have gone a bit too far and are just downright annoying. They require tracking around several buildings, backtracking clues, right back to the point where you realised that there was a rope to shoot, which had previously been obscured by some random bit of terrain when you looked up earlier, and you just shit 20 minutes of your fucking life down the dunny for a useless bolt-action rifle and a can of sody pop, because every time you looked up, you just happened to be in precisely the wrong spot. Difficult, I like. Wasting my last 30 minutes of game time trying to find a fucking rope, not so much. It's noteworthy that 3 fucking times in a row I have logged out in frustration at precisely this point and just said fuck it. If you're going to make them that hard, guarantee a decent reward, not a randomised piece of shit loot, a stale Twinkie and some Fanta. The gear rework was noteworthy. What can I say? Well, I've not managed to get to the point where I'm like fully kitted out and min-max, so for now any discussion is speculative, but I can say this. They changed everything so that we have to grind everything again. Talents be talents, to be fucking honest. All I want is plus pistol damage and some talent that bubbles up my armour whilst I'm shitting myself behind a dumpster and my drone and turret is whittling down the enemy AI. I think I will find those things, so as far as I'm concerned, it's bonza. Overall though, they basically got rid of a lot of the gear and weapon talents, reduced the number of stats and massively simplified things. I don't see any problem with it. In fact, I don't see any problem with the old system really, apart from shit weapon mods, low rolled gear, and the fact that it took a while to work it all out. The problem was that the content had got boring. I'm not sure that by removing talents from gear and simplifying the gear system, it's going to make the same repetitive missions exciting. But what would I know? The best way to explain the gear changes without going into detail is this. Imagine your local bakery was one of those fancy French ones. You could choose between normal bread, French bread, exotic bread, cakes, croissant, and those posh tarts that taste a bit fucking weird but must be nice because they cost £4, right? Now imagine that someone came along and turned the place into a Russian 1970s bakery. Now you only have two choices, big loaf or small loaf. That is the essence of the gear rework encapsulated right there. It's very simple. So simple, in fact, that if there is another DLC where the gear is simplified still further, there will probably only be two talents. One will be called good and the other one called shitty. And you just have to possess the most minimal brain function to remember to keep the good gear and vendor the shitty gear. Will the massive simplification of the gear system make the experience of the game better? I don't see why it automatically should. I guess you have to think less. I reckon Ubisoft would like us all to think less. In fact, I'm sure Ubisoft would prefer it if we didn't think for ourselves at all. The new recalibration system looks great, actually. Although, why the fuck there's no heavy tutorial pushing you towards it from day one is a mystery. Actually, it's not a mystery at all. They didn't bother to do one. Because profits. Ubisoft. Because profits. I would strongly suggest you look into recalibration from day one and watch Buzz Lightyear's guide video about how it works so you can start building up your recalibration library and not waste gear. That way, when you hit level 40 and you're min-maxing your gear, you will have a much more valuable collection of talents to waste when you royally fuck up your recalibration because the interface is such a confusing, impenetrable, overcomplicated fucking mess. That's my advice, at least. So what is the core economic model of this expansion? Well, fleece the loyal customers, basically. Oh yeah, and give away the base game for practically free so lots of new players won't begrudge buying the expansion. Look, it's like this basically. Why stay in New York for free when you can go to Washington, then back to New York and lose a lot of money on the way? Let's explore this journey. We paid $100 for the Division 1 to go to New York, invested over 2 years, waiting for the game to pull its own dick out of its own fucking arse. We ended up with a half-working product and a beautiful environment, a shit ton of cosmetic items that we either earned, bought or got awarded for buying the DLCs. We had the core game and 3 substantive and well-liked modes, and just as it was looking promising, then we had to pay all over again to get the Division 2 in Washington, which nobody wanted, lost all the substantive alternative game modes, paid $50 to $60 for Year 1 DLC, which was mostly gonks for your fucking rucksack, and some shit boring missions. Now, they introduce a level cap raise, rework the gear, and paywall it. They paywalled endgame and paywalled player progress. They are even paywalling certain gear and gear sets that will only be for level 40 players. Pay up or stop playing the fucking game that some of us have paid over $100 for. That is basically holding the players to ransom. Buy the expansion or pootle around at low level like a schmuck. Strangely enough, just like the players have to in World of Warcraft if they can't afford the next expansion. Funny coincidence that. This is not some free-to-play game, this is a full-price AAA title, and suddenly at the start of year 2, they turn it into a subscription model. That is despicable. Mark my words, now they've got away with it once, now they will paywall the shit out of this game's content. I think probably it will happen more than once a year. We paid for this game, now they want rent for it as well. When it comes to Warlords of New York, the question you need to ask is, for what problem is this the solution? This solution does not fix any of the players' vocal demands. It seems to make some positive changes to character progression, but it does not fix bugs, add new game modes, fix the instability or refresh the game beyond making us grind our gear all over yet again. But this DLC does solve one problem. The entire design philosophy of Warlords of New York is to extract another $30 from the customer. Given what a total pile of shite Year 1 DLC content was, why the fuck would anyone pay money for Year 2 content? A few of us have been thinking about this issue for pretty much the whole of Year 1. This right here explains pretty much everything about the design and structure of the DLC content. Ubisoft had one big problem, and that was nobody in their right mind was going to shell out cash for the next lot of shite DLC unless they had no choice. So Ubisoft engineered precisely that, a situation where you had no choice. Basic player progression was paywalled, so you were blackmailed into paying out money if you wanted to experience future game content and development. It is a fucking dick move, and it explains nearly everything. So let's do a quick price comparison and see what we could get with our money if we weren't fucktards and we spent that 26 UK pounds intelligently instead. £26 will get you the Warlords of New York DLC expansion, but for £1 less you could get entire excellent games like Void Bastards, Deep Rock Galactic, Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Monster Hunter World, Frostpunk, Kingdom Come Deliverance. There is no escaping the fact that spending £26 of your money on Warlords of New York is a very bad deal indeed, however you spin it. Even if the expansion was brilliant, it's still a shit deal compared to some of the brilliant new and legacy and recent titles available at the same price point. And let's be honest here, the expansion is not brilliant. It's the minimal viable product. Sure, it's got its good points, but it's an expansion I would not have bought out of choice. The World of Warcraftification of the Division franchise needs to be addressed. Many years ago, I described the franchise as being a shooter on the outside and World of Warcraft on the inside. It felt like my character was literally like a reskinned paladin. I did not fully appreciate the significance of those feelings at the time, nor the reality behind those thoughts. It's no secret that plenty of Activision Blizzard refugees have trudged their way across the harsh video game development landscape and found refuge in one of the many Ubisoft keeps scattered across the barren landscape. The heritage of World of Warcraft has always been visible in the game, but has been in a significant state of ascendancy since the Division 1 patch 1.7 way back in August 2017. Remember that news dump? It's like squeezing a spot, right?
Welcome everyone to the State of the Game.
So our current plan is to do a global event every month. That will run for an entire week. Global modifier is always a positive effect for the player. So the positive one is like squeezing a spot, right? Like squeezing a spot.
That State of the Game. That patch heralded the floodgates opening on the mass transfer of World of Warcraft features and mechanics into the franchise. Don't get me wrong, that patch introduced a lot of good content, but it can generally be attributed to be the watershed where the Division became less about Tom Clancy and more about Tyrande Whisperwind. Well, Ubisoft is no longer even attempting to hide how much it is trying to mimic the structure game mechanics, psychological reward loops, and sadly, the monetization strategies of World of Warcraft, amongst other heavy monetization strategies. And fucking hell, let's be frank here, it's now getting way out of control. Warcraft started out as an influence on this game. Now it's a straight up fucking core design concept. The achievement system, the collection mechanics, the busy work systems, the dailies system, increasing level cap with each expansion to force a purchase, the clan system. It's getting out of fucking control, guys. Sure, lots of these World of Warcraft ideas are generic across the gaming industry, but the division has obviously sat down and declared, let's just nick all the stuff from World of fucking Fuckcraft and stick it in this game. Because it works. And it doesn't require risk, creativity, imagination, much of a budget, or for that matter, that many brain cells to design. For many of us, we fucked off from Warcraft to pastures new for a reason. Now we find ourselves playing the same damn game, only our magic wands have been painted to look like M4s, and our magical cloaks of armour have been painted to look like flak jackets. Flak jackets that incidentally always seem to completely fuck up the molly system. Why would you have diagonal fucking molly? You know what those straps are for, right? Well, obviously not. I have played video games with many different business models. I played World of Warcraft and paid a subscription. I played World of Tanks, which was free to play. I have played good old-fashioned single-player games. What fucking boggles the mind is Ubisoft's new attitude of cash harvesting and gouging players using monetization from all of the business models simultaneously. The Warlords of New York business model is straight out of the World of Warcraft playbook. Raise the level cap, force players to buy the next expansion, rinse and repeat. And obviously when I say rinse, I mean that literally and metaphorically. The issue is that World of Warcraft got away with charging more because it had a fuck ton of finished and entertaining content. Holistically, it was a coherent and well-polished product. It had more things to do than time to do them. Fuck, you could play the game for years and still someone might casually mention some thing or place that you never even discovered. It had 60 levels worth of base content just to begin with. It had heaps of endgame content and some really high quality endgame content. It had 2 continents to explore in the base game alone and added more continents. It was a game that was so huge if you got on a flight point in the south and headed to the northernmost flight point of the continent, you could fuck off and make your breakfast. And you would still be flying when you came back. On top of that, it had Battlefield PvP. And very significantly, it was the best show in town. If Ubisoft thinks they can jump on the World of Warcraft train with this piss-poor product, it is ample demonstration that they think too highly of themselves. How fucking arrogant to think they can charge people regular payments just to keep playing a full price game they already bought with no warning that it would effectively turn into a subscription model by paywalling the levelling up process right at the start of year 2. Ubisoft has ridden into town on a donkey and they are trying to sell it at market for racing horse prices. They are taking the fucking piss. They have not delivered all of year 1 content at the point where they are charging for year 2 DLC. No wonder they decided they had to hard bake it into max level content, so players have to choose between paying up and walking away from their investment. This is the shittiest of shitty Ubisoft shittiness, and anyone who defends this behaviour at this point, after 4 years of chewing on the same stale nuggets of bullshit, is either a fucking idiot or getting paid. I think at this point it's mandatory to address the legacy of lying surrounding the Division franchise, especially because Ubisoft has been mindful to flood the market with new players by offering the game for peanuts. Well, one large bag of peanuts. Shit ones, not cashews or pistachios, mind. The recent new wave of players are probably turning up thinking, wow mum, what a bargain, I paid less than £3 for this game so I spunked another 26 on the expansion, and Ubisoft Massive promised they will fix all the broken shit and they seem like really, really, really nice guys. Well, just for the benefit of the future generation of Division players / suckers, you might want to get up to speed with how much they will be lying to you over the coming year, so you can quickly habituate yourselves to your new environment and ease your passage to becoming a bitter, cynical, untrusting skeptic like the rest of us veterans. We are working on it. The meme that just keeps giving.
We're working on it. We're working on it. We're working on it.
Ubisoft is always saying that they're working on it. The it might be hit registration in PvP, skills that don't revive properly, no damage bugs, or free shit that didn't get credited to your account. Well, I'm sorry to say that they will fix whatever they will fix, but most things will stay fucked. Hit registration and vanishing bullets are still happening, revives are still failing, and my mate never got his free cosmetics and baubles for buying a $250 version of the Division 2, and I mean never got his stuff, despite spending months hassling customer service. We are working on it, is developer speak for the check is in the post. It's not pay to win. Well, that promise gradually got phased out, and now they don't talk about it. I reckon paid levelling up and being able to buy specialisations with cash is pay to win. You can earn everything in game. Yet another promise that's been phased out over time and doesn't get mumbled on State of the Game anymore. Yes, troopers, once upon a time everything was available to earn in game, and it was a mantra that you would constantly hear on the State of the Game presentation every week. Then the loot boxes arrived. Then you could buy gambling loot boxes or just earn it, although they raped your chances using algorithms. Then a day came when they time-gated the loot box events, so you couldn't cap them in time. You had to buy gambling loot boxes to play catch-up. Then they nerfed the drop rates of cash keys. Then they introduced paid money-only caches to get the stuff you missed. Now they're introducing real cash money-only in-game content. Pay up or eat shit. It's amazing how Ubisoft Massive's promise that you can always earn everything in-game has transformed into you can buy everything in-game. The Dark Zone PvP. My new personal favourite, however, was brought to my attention by SRBPower, a veteran player, long-term community member and channel supporter. For a long time now, PvPers have been asking for more players in the DZs. In the good old days of the Division 1, the DZ was a giant lawless murderous shithole where up to 24 players would stab each other in the back just for the opportunity of hearing someone sobbing. In the Division 2, they neatly carved it up into 3 DZs with incremental levels of care-bearness and limited it to 12 players in each one, put trigger warnings up on the entrance and turned off enemy voice chat so nobody could hurt your fifis by saying poopy head or some other mean words that might traumatise you and make you go to bed crying. Players want 16 to 24 people in the DZ. Ubisoft keeps saying no. They say no because of quality of player experience. They've tested it repeatedly and they can say for a fact that 12 is best for everyone. Well, snuggle up beside me and get comfortable, children of the Division. I have a story to share about the history of the Dark Zone and its treachery and lies. Once upon a time, lots of developers at Ubisoft kept telling us we couldn't have a Dark Zone with more than 12 players because it would ruin the experience. Here is one of them doing it now.
So we actually looked into raising the player count to 16. We basically we tested a lot internally. We looked at increasing it, and actually we found that the play experience was best at 12. Interestingly, when we made that change to get enough people in there, like once you got too many people, it just kind of turned into this like PvP slugfest because there were so many people there. Instead of the kind of mystery of the Dark Zone and like, you know, the fantasy of being like this lone wolf in the Dark Zone kind of disappeared in that chaos. So, but it's obviously something that we can monitor, and we can also look into if there's going to be a desire for that in the future.
Look, Drew's not the only developer who's spun this yarn. Many of them have. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I've heard this story told at great length by Drew, Hamish, Yannick, Petter Potter, Terry Potter, and Keith Zorg, head of nerfing at Redstorm. So Drew is not alone. I've got nothing against Drew. He seems like a nice enough bloke and full of enthusiasm, like a juvenile otter, a baby kangaroo, or a dog that's been left at home for too long. He seems to be a people person and eager to please, to the point where if you left him in a meeting room for too long on his own, when someone finally walked in and said hi, he would jump up and down with glee and probably piss himself a little bit with excitement. Basically, I'm saying, here's a far nicer bloke than me. Although, all the evidence would suggest he is also, sadly, a shamefaced fucking liar. Credit to him at least for actually doing work on this game. That's got to count for something when, let's face it, barely anyone at Ubisoft works on this game. But regardless of how sympathetically I view our kid, and however much I sympathise with him, the fact remains that he is also the kind of guy who can sit on State of the Game and bullshit us for 5 minutes straight about imaginary meetings and imaginary decisions, about imaginary conversations, about the imaginary DZ player cap decisions, when all along it's a convoluted and entirely fabricated cover story to conceal the fact that, drum roll fucking please, you can only have 12 people max in the DZ because of the limits of graphics on console. Yes, you read that right. Federico von Thailander, senior developmental whatever and head of break-in weapon mods at Massive, obviously wasn't kept up to speed about the bullshit cover story and was quite open about the fact. You get 12 players in the DZ because the bloated graphics files are so large, they kind of fucked it up really and can't do better than 12 players at a time. Oops. Or should I say, ouch. Sadly, that means Drew is just as much of a bullshitter as Yannick, Petter, and all the other professional liars who come on every week and lie for the last 3 years of wall-to-wall lying. And just in case this hasn't sunk in, let's run that again.
We basically we tested a lot internally. We looked at increasing it, and actually we found that the play experience was best at 12. Interestingly, when we made that change to get enough people in there, like once you got too many people, it just kind of turned into this like PvP slugfest because there were so many people there.
I'm not gonna lie, it's a bit painful for me to watch, and I fucking edited it. You can't trust a damn thing these shitweasels say. I mean, really. For fucking months, they engaged in an entirely bullshit fake dialogue with the community about the size of the DZ and spoon-fed us the mashed banana of fake evaluation and consideration, then made claims that in their infinite wisdom that the dynamics of the player experience is optimised by capping the DZ at 12 players. Then Frederick Sausage Hands bumbles into the room and basically says, "Oh no, it's got nothing to do with that. The DZ's capped at 12 because consoles can't handle the fucking graphics, mate." I mean, holy fucking shit on a stick. Stop and let the implications of that fucking bombshell sink in. This means every discussion anyone ever had with a developer about DZ player cap was 100% total fabricated bullshit where they were all lying to order and lying from the same script. That's some pretty dark shit right there. That's like someone spending 8 months crying and claiming innocence through a court trial, and then someone pulling out a bloody knife out of an evidence bag that shows that everything we've been listening to and believing up to this point was all bullshit. And suddenly the defendant whispers to the attorney, stops crying, and changes their plea to guilty. Ubisoft lies. The community management team lies. The developers on State of the Game lie. Absolute credit to Frederick Tylander, though, for just speaking the plain truth. I salute him, even if he can't make a weapon mod worth a fuck and blocks people on social media because they don't give him enough cuddles. Oh, and now they've made a stack of cash on Warlords of New York, he's dropped this game like a dead baby and fucked off to work on Avatar or whatever. He's still blocking me and my mates on social media, by the way. The Great Purging. You see, I don't think it's just coincidence that Ubisoft started practically giving away the base game just prior to the release of Warlords of New York. For new arrivals and skeptics of my channel, please consider this. By the end of the life cycle of the Division 1, the franchise was in trouble. After 3 years of bullshitting and failing to deliver on time, the community did not trust Ubisoft. Then they pushed out the Division 2 with a huge amount of hype, promised everyone things would be different, and believe it or not, a lot of players believed them. Fucking idiots. Less than a year into the Division 2, most players realised that they got on the same broken roller coaster ride, paid even more the second time around for an even worse experience. The troops were starting to mutiny, and nobody in the community with half a fucking brain cell believed the community managers anymore. Solution? Give the base game away for practically free, flood the community with new players, and ban the shit out of anyone making critical comments in chat during their live streams. It is quite obvious that given the player demographics and that most veteran community members have seen all this shit before and sat on the roller coaster of lies and broken promises during the Division 1 lifespan and Year 1 of the Division 2, they are trying to cut the new customers off from that history. They don't want the new generation of suckers to know this has all happened before. Twice. They want to Edge of Tomorrow this shit and make sure the fresh batch of victims don't know what has happened previously. The enemy wants to learn from us, but also wants to wipe away our collective memories of events so that we can't learn from them. That's why they scrub the existence of the news dump from every platform and ban people just for mentioning my name on the subreddit. They want to erase history so that they can keep rerunning the same game plan, making money and regurgitating the same tired old bullshit. Mention my channel in Twitch chat and you get banned. The subreddit, run by a guy who gets free holidays from Ubisoft, does precisely the same thing. They even ban the use of my name. You'll get banned on the official Discord for mentioning my channel. They ban people who complain, and they ban people for just criticising certain aspects of the game. They have tried to completely expunge a section of the Division franchise's history, and then flood it with a replacement cohort of new players, oblivious to the fact that we have seen all this shit before twice. Think about it logically. The only reason you will sell a AAA game for under £3 in the first year is because you want to go free to play, get as many fresh suckers as you can, but you don't actually want to see news headlines saying The Division 2 goes free to play. So you charge a nominal token fee and shit those copies out of the plane door as fast as you can onto the refugees down below. As a footnote about the censorship, history will not be kind to our subreddit. These self-serving minions are servicing the interests of the publisher and selling out the player community. Their head moderator has now enjoyed 3 plush holidays abroad from Ubisoft, but still insists the subreddit is completely impartial. They're selling out the players, and most of the mods are probably just getting a few freebies, or just nothing really. I'm sure most of them don't even appreciate they are enablers for a few of them to get kickbacks. Well, I hope the head moderator is enjoying his holidays, facilitated by people who are equally liable, if not equally compensated. They might want to think about that. This being said, I would like to apologise and thank anyone who has been banned from the subreddit, Discord server, YouTube chat or Twitch chat for mentioning me or my channel. Thank you for the support, and I'm sorry that you got punished by merely being associated with me. But for any new players watching this video, you really need to think about the implication of this. This game's subreddit is run by a guy in Ubisoft's pocket. He gets the proverbial margaritas at the pool for his service, censoring our public subreddit, a subreddit incidentally that continues to claim that it's independent. It's about as fucking independent as a North Korean judicial inquiry. Wandering around the new version of New York City was actually a bit sad. You could see that Ubisoft Massive were trying to recapture some of the old Division 1 magic, where their snowy depiction of a virus-ravaged city in the winter was possibly one of the things they truly did brilliantly. We all missed New York City in the winter and questioned why they decided to fuck off to Washington in the first place. They appreciate that mistake now, and they're trying to compensate for it by taking us back to the new version of the city. Only it's a different part, in the sweltering heat. They have the Christmas music playing in stores, they have the Christmas trees with their lights mysteriously still working, they're trying to recreate the old days, and it's all very awkward and a bit embarrassing. The very act of imitating the previous game's glory is, let's face it, sad in itself. It's an admission of failure, which you feel with every step, and let's be honest, it's a poor imitation of the game's former glory days. It's a poor imitation that is well intended but a little bit tragic. Warlords of New York's attempts to recreate the franchise's former glory reminds me of the John Froome religious cult on the island of Vanuatu. Having once experienced the United States military visitors, the tribe created a religion worshipping their former guests, who brought them cargo and riches and promises of the freedom of America. Now every year they try and dress up like US soldiers and attempt to recreate the grandeur of those days as they experienced it back in the 1930s and 1940s. It's very sweet, it's very endearing, and it is also very incredibly fucking tragic. I think at this point, this franchise is an embarrassment to everyone involved. I'm even seeing signs that some people in the Ubisoft camp are getting embarrassed. It's getting shocking how many times they bullshit the community and get caught. Yannick looks permanently embarrassed most of the time. Tylander has pump and dumped this DLC out and quickly fucked off to a new job within days. You can say what you like about me, you can think what you like about the game. You don't have to believe me. None of you owe me anything. But Jesus fucking Christ, you owe it to yourself to at least check these facts with your own eyes. The players are repeatedly and habitually lied to. They promise the moon on a stick when they want us to spend, then immediately start a damage limitation exercise to explain why the shit we paid for is never going to turn up. Ubisoft relies on the fact that people have short memories, and they rely on the lag time between the time when they make a false promise and the time when they break it. One of the reasons they hate my guts, I guess, is because people highlight these incidents to me and I document them. And liars often react with aggression when they get caught out lying. Not everyone has money to spare. Some people only buy 1 or 2 big titles a year because the money they spend on games is money they can't spend on other things like food and heating. I feel for these players. This is why I think this DLC and the fact that they effectively made this game a subscription model is uniquely cruel and unfair. Some people don't have much money, and gouging them after 12 months is a shitty thing to do. Warlords of New York is not absolutely shit in a cup, but it's certainly not worth the money. It's An anti-consumer, minimal viable product designed to extract money from people who already paid for the game. A game that was monetized as heavily as a free-to-play game and should logically have been free-to-play itself. And maybe that is precisely the point of Warlords of New York. It's a bit like the Division 2's patch 1.7 moment. Like we had in the previous game. 1.7 was far from perfect, but did refresh the game and add some decent content. It was also fucking free. It was free because the game needed it. It was free because the players deserved it. It was free because when your game has turned to rat shit and everyone is bored out of their fucking skulls and you need to do something to make it up to the loyal players who have invested time and money in your shithouse game, you rectify your mistake for free. Not charge us. Warlords of New York is not in and of itself a complete fuck truck of dreadfulness in its entirety, but it is like an electrician coming round your house and charging you for repairing the work he fucked up the last time he did the job. We are literally paying for Ubisoft Massive's mistakes. Charging the players for this is taking the piss. Introducing multiple new tiers of monetization and microtransactions is taking the piss. Failing to properly beta test this is taking the piss. Warlords of New York is taking the piss. This DLC is a very shit deal. A very shit business from a publisher who is increasingly treating its customers like shit. It costs more than 4 months subscription to Netflix and has worse buffering speeds. You can buy whole games for less than this costs. It's a bad fucking deal. But for now, good luck and happy hunting. Oh yeah, and the whole plot twist at the end? That was fucking ludicrous.